Hey guys, welcome back for another live stream. It feels like a while since I've done this. Honestly, I feel like we were doing so many. And then after that Manchester United game, I've just been like down in the dumps a little bit. Alex knows all about that because I was on his post pod for that game. So that brings me to my big introduction. I'm joined by the one and only Alex Goldberg. You probably already know him, but if you don't, where have you been living for the past 2 or 3 years? Really. So, Alex, thank you so very much for joining me. It's weird that the tables are turned because usually you're the one hosting these things. But how are you doing today?
It is weird, Elizabeth. I can't lie. It's very weird. Not just because I'm on the line with you, but just in general, I'm still way more used to being the host than the guest. But no, it's awesome to be on your channel. So happy to be a guest. So honored to be a guest. So glad you have a channel. So yeah, no, I'm doing well. And, that draw against Manchester United was just so deflating, but also boring. It was just a drag. And I'm very nervous for this Liverpool game. But I have a feeling it won't be as much of a drag. Hopefully it's positive, but I don't think it'll be as boring.
Yeah, and that's something that I was actually going to ask you. So screw my order, whatever. Let's just get right into it. Do you think that we're going to see this game more open? Because we know that Liverpool haven't been in good form, and both of these teams are fighting for that top 4 spot. So do you think that Liverpool almost have more to fight for, and therefore they're going to be more open in this game and willing to take more risks?
I mean, I just think on style, they're going to be more open for sure, especially compared to Manchester United. Like, even when those teams are going well, so even when United's going well, they still pretty much sit back and hit you on the counter. Obviously, if they're playing like a way worse team, they'll possess the ball more, Manchester United. But still, all his style is to pretty much hit the other team on the counter. Whereas Liverpool are definitely a more complete team, especially when they're healthy. They obviously would like to possess the ball, move the ball around, but also get very direct with Mohamed Salah and Sadio Mane. And obviously their fullbacks down the side really contribute to the attack. So they're definitely going to play a more up and down game comparatively if everything's even in Manchester United. And we know Chelsea, though, haven't really faced a Liverpool yet under Tuchel. Obviously not Liverpool specifically, or even a team as good on paper as Liverpool, but also style-wise. Like, I still think, Elizabeth, what is Tuchel, 8 games in, maybe 9 games in? I think he's 8 games in. But we've really had almost a run of very similar opponents. Like, we've had some small tweaks along the way. I know Southampton kind of pressed us and got in our face a little bit and were a bit more energetic. I know even Barnsley did a little bit more of that in, I believe, the FA Cup game. But overall, whether we faced a big opponent or a small opponent, they've been teams that kind of have been really used to sitting back and letting us possess it. So I'm really interested to see how these two teams are going to contrast each other, where we know Tuchel wants to possess the ball meaningfully, but he wants to possess the ball. But at the same time, no matter how injured Liverpool are, and, I don't think they'll have Jordan Henderson, but they did just get a bunch of players back in training. Typical, right? That always happens for Chelsea.
Always.
We know. But I wouldn't be surprised if Van Dijk, who's out for the rest of the season, miraculously is starting in this game. But no, I mean, the midfielders for Liverpool are definitely also used to possessing the ball and controlling things. Thiago definitely being one of those guys. So I'm interested how they will approach each other. I'm really excited for the managerial matchup. But yeah, to answer your question, I definitely think it'll be more open. Maybe that's the word, just at least more up and down. And I really think that if you're a neutral, you're definitely going to enjoy this game more than you would have the Chelsea-Manchester United game.
Yeah, that's a really good point. So given that Chelsea have kind of struggled to break down low block sides in the past, do you think – sorry, there goes like somebody honking. I don't know if you guys can hear it, but my street is always very noisy. Alex knows this.
I love Elizabeth Street. It's never a boring day with Elizabeth Street. She's got a truck. She's got honking. Sometimes she's got birds. I mean, it's a beautiful thing. But anyway, continue.
Anyway, so sorry, guys. What was I saying? Okay, so given that Chelsea have played very similar opponents in the past, and these opponents have normally been sides that have played a low block and defended deeply, and Chelsea have typically struggled to break down these sides, do you think that it almost could be a potential advantage that Liverpool will likely play more open?
That's actually a really good question. I think it might be. I think it might be also because Liverpool aren't going to have Van Dijk back there. And I'm pretty sure not Joe Gomez, right? I'm almost positive Joe Gomez is not in the picture because they've had to have their new signing from Schalke and they've had to have Fabinho back there. So, yeah, they're not going to have their normal center back pairing. So, yes, based on the fact that they won't have one of the world's best defenders in Van Dijk and just a center back battery that they're used to, and the fact that they're not going to play a low block, yeah, I do think Chelsea maybe can get more opportunities, more clear opportunities to score some goals. Because to Chelsea's credit, yes, they have to be better in the last 20 meters, as Tuchel will always say. They have to be, because they are possessing the ball enough. They are creating enough chances to score more goals. And obviously the quality of players out there should be doing better in terms of being clinical with goals and assists. However, you do have to take context into account. I think I said on the pod when you were on Sunday after Manchester United, I said, well, if you just isolate it down to the last two games against Atletico Madrid and Manchester United, it's not that crazy to think that one of them was a 1-0 win and the other was a 0-0 draw. Like, that's not that crazy to think. But we've now faced so many of these, we just feel like we should be scoring more regardless. So I do think we should remember that we have faced a lot of opponents who are designed to frustrate even really good players like we have. But yeah, against Liverpool, I actually think as good as Liverpool can be, probably no excuses, Elizabeth, to not score at least one or two goals because of how the style will be. So at least getting better chances on goal. Like, a big gripe of mine lately has been, okay, we've created chances, not always in a wide variety of ways, but we've created enough chances like, you know, balls across the box, Callum, Reece, Mason putting nice balls across the box. We need more vertical passing, but we've created enough to score a little bit more. And some of our shot attempts haven't even been on net. So we got to get them on net because I do think we'll once again have the opportunities against Liverpool because of what you mentioned, the style and also the personnel being out injured. So the opportunities will be there. If Alisson stands on his head and has a great game, well, then that's just bad luck. But I really do actually think I would be disappointed, no matter what the result is, win, draw, loss, I'd be disappointed to not get one or two goals minimum because of the style of Liverpool and the fact there is no Van Dijk and they're so vulnerable.
Yeah, no, it's so true. And something else that I wanted to ask you about, we know that Liverpool's form has been terrible. It's been absolutely terrible. They have won one in their last five, and those other four were losses, guys. And I think they've only won 3 in their last 12. And I think that this stat is correct. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but they've only scored 1 goal in their last 5 games at Anfield. Only 1 goal. So do you think that this is the best time, that the best opportunity that Chelsea will have to be this Liverpool side?
Yes and no. I think you can go two ways on that. You could definitely say that they're a team right now that is injured, and I mean that in a literal and a figurative way. Obviously, their confidence is a lot lower than it normally is. They do have some missing key pieces, so some of their chemistry and continuity is off. So they definitely are a little bit of a wounded animal, if you will. But at the same time, they still have plenty of talented players. And they also, Elizabeth, could view this game as the game that gets them spearheaded back up the table, not for a title challenge, but to really cement their spot in the top 4, because I believe they're only 1 point behind us. Yep. So they could view this like, ooh, we had a bad run here. We slipped up against teams we never thought we would slip up against. But this is our chance. This is our chance to, you know, this is a 6-point game, as one would say when you're so close on the table. This is our chance to prevent Chelsea, who are a point above us, from getting any points, and our chance to leapfrog them, go 2 points ahead, and never look back. So I think you can look at it two ways. But confidence does play a part. And I think as good as Liverpool have been for a number of years, they've been a really confident team, obviously, because they have really good chemistry as well. Confidence does play a part. And I would say that this is probably the lowest I've seen their collective confidence. So that is something that I think Tuchel and Chelsea need to take advantage of. Maybe the opening of the game, you could say that probably for every game, but maybe even for this one, the opening of the game will be really, really important, because if we can get an early goal or even just kind of dominate the game early on, Liverpool might have that feeling of, uh-oh, we're still not out of this funk. I
hope so. You know, I just am like tired of seeing Chelsea have so much possession but not scoring from it. And I just want to start seeing some goals because we've seen under Tuchel that the defense has sturdied up a lot. Before we were conceding a lot of goals. We couldn't keep a clean sheet, but we were also scoring a lot of goals. And it felt like the way that we would win games was by outscoring our opponents. And all of a sudden it's changed so that now we can keep clean sheets, but we're having difficulty in front of goals. So do you have any idea as to why that is happening? You know, it's the same players, just not scoring goals anymore. And any ideas on how to fix that? What can these players do to start being more clinical?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's the $1 million question, obviously, of how can they actually be more clinical. I mean, I think Matisse said that some of them might actually just need to stay longer after training and shoot a bit more and really practice it a bit more. I know, obviously, when we see these training videos, they make amazing goals. And obviously, if you watch like Chelsea's YouTube channel of Chelsea Unseen, you're going to see awesome plays in training. But come on, like even teams way worse have awesome goals scored in training. These guys can do ridiculous things on the training pitch. But sometimes it does take kind of just solely focusing on what you're doing, even once training's over, to get you back in rhythm. I know in all sports, to get out of slumps, that's kind of what you need to do. I mean, even Mason Mount, who obviously is still not fully consistent in that department, Mason Mount probably had the best example of it all season, where he got man of the match against, I'm going to butcher the team. It was under Tuchel. He got man of the match, but he had a bunch of shots that game that were off. He wasn't that clinical. And he said after the game, you know what? I need to work on my shooting a bit more. And then 3 days later, Elizabeth, and I know this because my co-host Matisse even tweeted the whole entire timeline of it. 3 days later, he had a clinical left-footed finish. You probably remember, in the middle of the box, made a trailing run. Werner assisted him. And it was just kind of like, yeah, all right, he probably put a little extra work in, and he was super confident for that finish. So probably some of that needs to happen, but just seems like these days that's almost a little bit more old school. I'm not saying players aren't working once training's over, but it does seem a bit more of an old school thing. So yeah, collectively, I mean, the players still have to just have a short mind, a short memory. Obviously, if they miss a chance, they can't be hesitant to take the next one. That is something I am seeing. Like, I do feel like there's a lot of players out there a little bit afraid to fail, where they're almost afraid to take the shot because they're not going well. And they're afraid to know about the moaning once they shoot it to row Z. They kind of have to just get over that. Like, you have to have a bit of a short memory. I would say that more people need to have Ziyech's attitude. I'm not even saying Ziyech needs to play, but I think one advantage of someone like Ziyech is he has a short memory. He's willing to try things. And I'll pick on a player here who I like. I'm not picking on him to bash him, but Timo Werner. Obviously, he has given us a lot of positive things even when he's not scoring. I'm actually a decent-sized Timo fan, and I think that even if his touch is going to be questionable for the rest of his career, he can still be a really good goal scorer for Chelsea. And he has such great work ethic and pace that it really is impactful, once again, even when he's not clinical. But something I need to see more from Timo Werner is, no matter the manager, Lampard or Tuchel, he's usually playing somewhere on the left. Even if he's in a two-striker formation, he's usually the left-sided striker. So whether it's left wing, left forward, or really a striker in a two, he's usually operating more on the left-hand side. You've probably seen the heat maps recently. Like, he'll be in that zone. Why doesn't Timo cut in on his right more and shoot with his right more? Doesn't he every play kind of tease that, but then cut it onto his left and cross it in with his left? That's great that you can do that, Timo. It's awesome. I just spoke about the goal Mount scored, where you put a good ball in from the byline with your left to Mount's left peg. Great. But wait a minute. You're a goal scorer. You're right-footed. And even if the ball doesn't go in, show the opponent that. Like, you got to show the opponent that so they can actually prepare to defend that. Once you show them, oh, I could cut in on my right and shoot with my right, well, it actually will be easier then the next time you want to switch it back onto your left. You'll have more space because they're actually kind of anticipating you to cut in, obviously from the left onto your right, and shoot with your right. So I'm thinking of a number of players who were less prolific goal scorers than Timo Werner, who did that more. Eden Hazard, obviously, I mean, we're comparing Bundesliga to the Premier League, but Timo's got more of a goals mentality. Even Eden would tell you that. But Eden was so dangerous from that side because he could do anything. And he absolutely would cut in to his right and shoot on his right. So it was always just giving the defense something extra to think about. I mean, even Willian, to his credit, We saw him a number of times when he did rarely play on the left wing, cut onto his right, and then it opens up both sides. Callum Hudson-Odoi, I mean, to bring it back more current, Elizabeth, this is something that I'm starting to think I want to see. I even mentioned it when you were on the pod on Sunday. Like, we've really enjoyed Callum as a right wing back, but I do know factually when Callum plays at left wing, he's a danger to cut in on his right from the left and shoot with his right, but also drag it back to the byline and cross with his left. So I also think some players, and I just picked on Timo there specifically, but it kind of opens up to all players. Some players need to just be a little less afraid to fail and just try a little bit of everything. Keep trying. We can possess the ball all day, but you got to take chances once you're in those last 20 meters. You really, really do. So, yeah, I mean, besides a change of formation, Elizabeth, those are the things I think need to happen. And a lot of that is actually the players just individually taking it upon themselves. Formation, last thing to answer your question, because obviously it's a loaded question. Formation could be impacting our trouble scoring because I will remind anybody watching, when you play with this formation, you're kind of sacrificing an attacker, especially when you have a midfield two that you don't rely on to really score or assist. So you have 3 center backs, you have 2 wing backs. Usually one of our wing backs has been pretty attacking, but still, they are playing a little bit further back. Like even Callum, when he plays wing back, yeah, he's attack minded, but he is playing further back from the goal. So it's making it a little less likely that he'll get a goal. Maybe he still is just as likely to get an assist because he's so great at passing it from over there. But you're getting 3 center backs out there, 2 wing backs, and then the midfield too. As good as they're playing, obviously, they're not really helping you actually get a goal or an assist. So it really is heavily dependent, Elizabeth, a lot of the time down to just the 3 players up front.
Yeah, no, it's a really good point, and that's something that I don't quite like about this formation is that I do feel like we're sacrificing an attacking player for an extra center back, and sometimes in these games, I don't think that you necessarily need to be so defensively minded, and I do think that we're probably going to see this formation out for the rest of the season, just because we're trying to get top 4, and if it's working, then why change it? But I do hope that at preseason, Thomas Tuchel is going to be able to evaluate the options that he has, who's staying, who's going, and try to find more ways to fit certain players, and especially players like Pulisic and Havertz, who I think could be lethal for Chelsea, but just haven't really been getting game time, and perhaps a change of formation could help them as well. And hopefully we can see more attacking players on the pitch. So I do want to get to some questions. Guys, if you have any questions, Alex is the perfect person to ask. So if you have questions, make sure to ask them and I will get to as many as possible. I'll start with one from Ali. Ali always joins my stream, so thank you so much, Ali. I really appreciate it. And she says, Mount's more of a midfield player, so is having him forward hindering the attack? We can't drop him, but it makes us only have 2 attacking options. Alex, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. I would say that he's not hindering the attack because he's still, when he's an attacker, one of our most dangerous players, which is just factually true. And honestly, I mean, just use the eye test. Like, it's Mount who's dicing up players, going through the legs of players. He's actually the one doing the winger type things as well. So I wouldn't even say Mount is hindering the attack, but I do get the question. I think having Mount forward instead of maybe a Pulisic or a Kai Havertz, who are solely going to try and attack, having Mount forward could hinder the attack because then also you're having 2 players in the middle, like Jovicic or Kovacic and Conte, do a great job. But like I said, they're not really even supposed to, or at least we're not depending on them to get a goal or an assist. So I do think there is a real shout to start considering Mount, even in this formation, in the midfield too. We've seen him play there, Elizabeth. I mean, right before Tuchel even took over, we started to see Money Mace a lot as, an 8 for a large point of the season. But even as the season drew on, Frank played him sometimes in a midfield too, or at least once the game grew on and obviously some subs were made. Like we saw Mount, I think it was under Lampard, pair Kovacic at some point in the game. Maybe it was against Fulham. I mean, I don't know. My memory's crap. It was towards the end of Lampard's tenure where at some point in the game, it was just Kova and Mace in the middle of the pitch. And all it took was Mount saying to Kova, hey, sit deep a little bit. I'm pairing you, but sit deep a little bit so he could get a little bit more adventurous and get into the box. And we even saw Mount start to help our attack, even playing in a midfield too. And obviously, it's something that Gareth Southgate with England has definitely done a little bit and certainly thought about a lot. So we know Mount can be a true midfielder, like a true midfielder. He can be in a midfield too, in my opinion, just as much as anyone else that we have midfielder wise. And I really then think that opens up a chance to get another attacker in there. So I don't really blame Tuchel, because I would say that he probably doesn't know as much about Mount as a true mid as he does with Jorginho, Kovacic, and Conte. And then he's also seeing the ability Mount has and the ability to press up high, his work rate. So he's seeing the allure of having Mount more forward as an attacker. But I do think that if Tuchel, like you said, wants to kind of keep this formation for the rest of the season, just because it's the safest thing to do, well, he should at least experiment within it a little bit more. And I do think one of the logical moves might be making Mount a bit more of a proper midfielder, getting him in a midfield too, and then putting on another attacker where he would be. But I guess the problem, Elizabeth, is who do you drop? I mean, Kovacic right now is playing really well, so you don't really drop him. But then Conte and Jorginho are those players that, depending on the opponent, one seems appropriate. The other one might not seem appropriate, but depending on the style of opponent, you can totally make the argument or case for Conte or Jorginho. So I'm not even saying that one of those guys is playing poorly enough where the decision's obvious, but I also think that putting Mount in a midfield too could actually help the attack. Yeah, it's a good question.
Yeah, that's a really good question and a great answer as well. It's something that I definitely want to see, because I do want to see more attacking players on the pitch. And I do think that Mace can do a job in that role as well. And we know that he can do the defensive side of the game too. So it's definitely interesting. I hope that Tuchel does this at some point. But let's get to some more questions. Sifal asks, Alex, how do you see Hakeem fitting in? And this is a really interesting one, I think, because at the beginning of the season, I think we chatted about this, that Hakeem Ziyech was like the player that we saw fitting in the easiest into this Chelsea side. That out of all of the players that we bought, at least for me, I said, oh, I think Hakeem is going to hit the ground running. He has experience in the Champions League as well. So I think that he can really thrive in the Premier League and in this Chelsea side and be like our top assister, basically, because I just thought he was that good. Now we're seeing that he really has not been fitting. He played a couple of games really well under Lampard, and then recently he's just completely trickled off. In the game against Manchester United, I was hoping that he was going to like take charge of that game and say, oh, this is my chance. I need to take it with both hands, because I haven't been starting games. But I was not impressed by what I saw from Hakeem Ziyech in the Man United game either. So what do you think about Hakeem? Do you see him fitting into this team at all?
Yeah, he's such an interesting case because he's just a little bit different from everyone. It's actually kind of why I warmed up to him coming to Chelsea initially, was I thought he would contrast the squad pretty well. Like, he's just such a unique player. He is a player that needs to kind of have the ball in order to really make his impact. I'm not saying he won't work off the ball. I mean, he does press a decent amount, but to be Hakeem Ziyech, he's got to really kind of have the ball like a point guard needs it in basketball to really pick where the ball goes. So when you have him out there, I mean, no matter the formation, to be quite honest, the ball kind of needs to find him. So it does seem like in this formation specifically, even when you put him as like this right forward who could even tuck in and become a 10, it just seems like it kind of goes against the directness Tuchel wants with every other player on the pitch. So I guess over time, if you play Ziyech enough, it won't matter as much because the other players can be direct, they can make runs, and they'll kind of grow an understanding with Ziyech on where to be, when he likes to pass them the ball. Like, I'm not saying he can't succeed in this formation, but the only problem is he has also just been inconsistent with availability. He's had 2 injuries this season, and he is a player that does kind of seem like he needs a run of games to kind of get revved up to fully be Hakeem Ziyech again. Not to say his confidence needs that. I mean, he's always confident, but just to kind of feel a part of the side and really make an impact, it seems like he needs a string of games. And can you really afford to give him that, especially when you're playing everyone else that you're playing? We just talked about how Mount arguably should or could be moved to the midfield to open up the attack so you can get more attackers out there. Well, kind of similar argument for Ziyech. Like, sure, ideally you want to give him more keys to the bus, if you will. Bus is probably the wrong word because I'm not talking about parking anything, but keys to the, I don't know, sports car, if you will. And that will be great. If he gets a little bit of time, he can make the team his own. But there's really no time to do that because if it doesn't really come off, then you're robbing other players of minutes that they could be using to get back in form, like Pulisic and Kai Havertz. So I do think that maybe it's a bit unfair on Ziyech, but kind of like what you said, I know Matisse has said this, many people have said this, he is a player that is going to be held to a different type of standard where we can't just wait around for him forever to be Hakim Ziyech. Like when he gets his chances, he needs to just take advantage of them. He needs to, because we didn't invest as much in him, obviously, as a Kai Havertz, as a Timo Werner, as a Christian Pulisic. And his age, I mean, he's 27. He's obviously not old, but he's in his prime. And we didn't just sign him because he was good in the Eredivisie. We also signed him, probably even more so, because he showed us that it wasn't really league dependent when he played Real Madrid and Juventus and us. He was really good in the Champions League. So he is a player that, yeah, fine. Fairly, everybody needs a little bit of continuity in a side and they need to not be injured. But honestly, he is the type of player that when he gets these chances, one random start, he's got to take advantage of that. And he can't really have much of a gripe if he doesn't take advantage of it and he doesn't play the next game. So I do still think, like, let's put it this way. If I see the starting 11 tomorrow night and I see Ziyech in there, I'm not going to be upset. Like, I'm not going to be upset. It's probably not what I would do, but I'm not going to be upset because I will kind of, at least at this point, still think glass half full. And I would think, well, at least he won't be afraid of the big game. He will try things. And if he does have a good chemistry with, say, a Callum or a Reese or just anybody making a run for him, well, that could really come off. And he is always a player that can really help you win a game 3-0, 4-0, 5-0. And I'm not even just basing that off of Ajax score lines. Those are obviously really embellished based on the league quality. But he definitely can help your attack in creating chances. Like, Elizabeth, I agree. He wasn't great against Manchester United, yet he had 5 chances created. So he's that type of a player. But obviously, everything just needs to click at the right time. And he's still going to be a player, even in form, that frustrates you. So, yeah, I mean, a little bit's unfair on him. But at the same time, for the reasons I gave, that's football. That's football. He's 27. We didn't invest a lot in him. So if he starts tomorrow night or whenever he does next start, he's got to just be Ziyech, what we thought we were getting originally.
Yeah, I also think that maybe, having low confidence could have a little bit to do with it as well. Maybe he's just not at his peak. And I think confidence can affect players' decision making, how everything just like really comes off. And something else that I've been thinking more and more about is not having fans in the stadium as well could affect not only Ziyech, but a lot of these players. Just like that could be why we're seeing, like, I don't know. I feel like if there were fans in the stadium, maybe we would see the team taking some more chances because the fans would be like rooting them on to score a goal. And it must feel really weird for them without anybody. And I was speaking to Alison Bender about this, and she said in the stadium, it's just so weird when you score a goal because it's just quiet. You can hear a pin drop. So perhaps that could be something else that's affecting him as
that
well.
Could definitely, actually, I just want to jump in and applaud that point of yours, especially with Ziyech, just because he's a little bit of a malaise player. Like, I don't think either player is lazy, but I actually think that if anybody wants to tag lazy onto one of our new signings, it should be Ziyech and not Kai Havertz. And I'm not saying Ziyech is lazy. Once again, he actually will press off the ball. So I'm not saying he's lazy. However, he's just so casual in how he tries things. Like taking a shot from 35 yards is no big deal to him. Making a 40-yard pass is no big deal to him. He just does it. Kai Havertz, it's just a body language thing. It's almost like Reece James. They're not lazy. But anyway, back on Ziyech, I do kind of feel like just some fans making some noise might just make him do it a little bit more precise or just concentrate just a little bit more. I'm not saying he's not concentrating, but this is a game all about details. It's all about the finite half-a-second decision. And yeah, maybe if there were some fans kind of just reminding Ziyech, you know what, we are here. This isn't just training. Maybe he would just be a bit more precise with how things are coming off. It's a fair point.
Yeah. So hopefully we can see Hakim Ziyech back to his best. But like you said, I would be a little bit surprised if he starts against this Liverpool side. So I do want to get to more questions because We've already been talking for half an hour, which is just insane. I don't know where the time has gone. So James is asking us, what are your thoughts on Marcus Alonso having to defend against Salah? How do you feel? You think that I see you shaking your head. I'll just let you talk on this one.
I mean, normally Alex Goldberg has a lot to say, but I don't really have much to say. I mean, one of the paciest players, one of the most dangerously direct players in Mohamed Salah versus one of the slowest defenders I've ever witnessed, and a defender who kind of picks and chooses when he wants to try. Yeah, I'm not too thrilled about it, but who knows? I mean, Alonso in big games sometimes is a bit different. So if he does start, I'm not expecting a horror show from him effort-wise. Like, I don't think he'll dog it effort-wise because Chilwell just started the most recent one. You normally get a pretty good game from Alonso effort-wise after he didn't play. He's just that type of a guy. So I do think he could at least give us good effort. However, even Alonso giving good effort, his pace for Salah, yeah, that kind of frightens me. So, yeah, I don't feel too good about it, James.
So, like, kind of looking forward to that game. I do want to do a starting 11, but I'll just ask you about this one position. First, who do you start at that left wing back spot? Because I assume we're going to be playing this 3-4-2-1 formation. So, do you continue with Ben Chilwell or do you start Alonso?
No, I'm not even running my agenda here. I start Chilwell. Like, even agenda aside on Alonso, I start Chilwell. I thought Chilwell was in the Manchester United game. Poor first half. Thought he was much better in the second half. However, I do think tactically he's probably better to at least defend against Liverpool. And then going forward, yeah, I mean, Alonso, if he scores a goal, he's always the right decision. But if he doesn't, there's a huge argument to be made against it. And I do think Chilwell is capable of scoring a goal. So, I mean, he factually is. It's not just me thinking that. He factually is. And I still rate Chilwell's ball into the box just as much as I do Alonso. I absolutely do. But even more so, like, character means a lot to me. And I feel like Chilwell, who has been obviously on Leicester City for a number of years, who have been a good enough team to at least care how good Liverpool are, if that makes any sense. Like, obviously, they haven't been close to Liverpool. No one really has in the standings. But Leicester City have at least, been a good enough team where they kind of know the gap between them, who are pretty good, and Liverpool. So Chilwell knows how big this game is. And obviously, he's going to be playing in a game against Andrew Robertson, who certainly has been kind of the consensus best left back for the last number of years. Maybe like right now he's not, but overall he has been. So I feel like Chilwell will care from that perspective. Not saying he picks and chooses when he cares either, but I do just think that a guy with character, giving him 2 games in a row to build off of obviously not playing for a little while, I think we should see a really good performance from Ben Chilwell. I really, really do think that if he starts, he will have a fairly good game. And I would just lastly add that, honestly, in order to give Ben Chilwell any chance of being the signing we thought he could be, or at least some people thought he could be, he has to be able to get like continuity in the side again. So he can't just be asked to come in every once in a while and have a standout performance, and then have Alonso, though, get 3 games in a row. And then when Alonso maybe dips a bit after that 3rd game, Chilwell comes in. Like, that's not an easy way to kind of prove yourself. Obviously, I just said for Ziyech, like, hey, that's the fact, Ziyech. You might have to be doing that. But the context is still different. We've invested more in Chilwell. Ziyech is older, so the context is still drastically different. But yeah, I just think Chilwell is really not far off the pace from Alonso, even as a wingback. He has more pace to face Liverpool's directness. So I would go with Chilwell. And also, to be a little biased, Elizabeth, I love that little report from The Athletic the last day or so about how Chilwell totally knows why he's not playing. Like, he admits his form kind of dipped at the end of Lampard's tenure. He hasn't thought about complaining. He understands Alonso's more appropriate as a left wing back. So, I'm not surprised by that because I really do rate the head on his shoulders, Ben Chilwell. But that was nice to hear as well. So that's why I think that we would see a performance full of character from Chilwell if he was to start.
Yeah, you make some really good points. And the only thing that It's not even like that I worry about. It's just that Chilwell started against United, so I'm thinking perhaps Tuchel's going to rotate the squad and play Alonso. But like you said, I feel like they're both like I don't feel like either of them are offering incredible performances right now. Like I don't think either of them are unplayable. So for me, like if you have Ben Chilwell, who's also younger as well, and he can learn to play this left wing back spot as well as the left back spot, and you can invest time into him. I do think that he offers more than what Alonso could. I think Alonso just has a really good golazo in him every 10 games or so, and you just never know when that's going to happen. But like the comments said, I would be very nervous with Alonso going like up against Salah, and I think that it could put a lot of pressure on our defense. So I agree that we should probably start Chilwell. So going into that, we're getting a lot of questions of who would you play in this position? Who would you start? So I think it's come to a good time to try to think of a starting 11. I think that it's kind of difficult. We've seen players in a lot of different positions, but I also kind of like just doing it and seeing how close we get when the actual starting 11 comes out, and sometimes I can brag that I got most of it right. So looking at I'm just going to skip over the goalkeeper because I think Mendy is obviously starting, but at the right wing back spot, who are you starting?
Yeah, I know Callum is 100% good to go. Like he's fit and everything. Tuchel confirmed that. But I actually give Reece the start there. I'm not even saying that would totally exclude Callum from starting, but at that right wing back start spot, I would start Reece James. Does it go even deeper because I want Reece and Trent on the pitch at the same time? Yeah, probably true. But honestly, I just think Reece James is too good of a player to be such a spotty starter, even in this formation. And I know some people are a little bit down about how he plays it safe and kind of plays negative and passes it back. But you know what? I know he has the talent to be a bit more daring. So I actually kind of rate the fact that he's mature in how he thinks and he's responsible and maybe he errs on the side of caution. Like, I think that's a good foundation. I think he's a tremendous player. Callum, I would have no qualms with if he started at right wing back. But against Liverpool, I still would probably go with the more naturally defensive-minded player. I'd go with Reece James.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's something that I've noticed. It's funny that you say that because I feel like Reece has become a little bit more risk averse going forward. And I wonder if that's down to instructions as well, if they're just told like to try to keep the ball more at all costs and not play as risky of a pass. I don't know. I don't know what the answer is, but I do think that he is a really good player and capable of pulling off. We saw that cross. I think it was in the United game that it was it to Timo, I think?
It was Timo Werner, and Lindelof made a great clearance, it actually looks like. But I also will say, I think you're right that there could be different instructions when Reece and Callum play that spot. So much so that if people remember, obviously Callum was kind of taken out at halftime because he had a small injury. But Tuchel actually did admit that it also was a tactical switch as well, which may have missed some fans, which maybe actually would make fans upset. But no, Tuchel gave the reasoning behind it. We did kind of go to more of a back five when Reece was out there. I know you can always call a back three also a back five because you're playing with wing backs, but obviously a true back five, those players are just a little bit further back. So he did kind of say he also put in Reece because he was going a little bit more with a true back five. So yeah, you may call Reece still a right wing back there, but his positioning was a bit deeper. So it does make sense that it wouldn't be Callum and it would be Reece.
Yeah, perfect. And then going into those three center backs, Thiago Silva is still out, and I think that we're probably going to see the same three that we've been.
It writes itself, does it not? Not to interrupt you, but it writes itself. Yeah.
Azpilicueta back in the team, I love to see that with Christensen and Rudiger as well. I hope that Aspi has a good game. You know how much I love that man. So.
Yes, you do. So much you married him.
I know. I told my husband that when I first met him, I was like, has anybody told you that you look like Azpilicueta? And he was like, what? He doesn't think he looks like him at all. And I think they could be twins. So anyways, and the left back spot we already talked about. We would play Chilwell ahead. So going into that midfield too, it's an interesting shout because we know that Kovacic and Jorginho have normally been playing there, but I do think like I would prefer to have that defensive reassurance of N'Golo Kante instead of Jorginho, especially because we're not going to have as much of the ball as we did against even Manchester United, but the other teams that we have been playing. So who do you start in that midfield too?
Yeah, I go Conte Kova. I do. I don't think it's an easy decision, but I agree. I think against Liverpool, I'd like to have Conte out there. I certainly would. And, I do think the chemistry of Jorginho and Kovacic is probably the best chemistry if you take pairings of those three. However, they weren't horrible together against Manchester United, Kova and Conte. And you could also say, well, it gives them 2 games to build on, 2 games in a row. But really, it just comes down to the fact that I can't really drop Kova. And I also don't really rate all that much the pairing of Jorginho with Conte. So I also want Conte out there against Liverpool. So aside from pulling Mount into my midfield, which I'm open to, but I'm just not going to say it for this game, yeah, I have to say Kova and Conte.
Yeah, I agree. And then I think that we're probably going to see Mason playing ahead of them. I think he's one of the first names on the team sheet, rightfully so. And then we get into an interesting point. And this is something that you asked me on your pod. So I want to ask you, do you think that we could potentially see a combination of Kai and Timo for this Liverpool game? And I think it could be a good idea, but what do you think?
I'm totally for it. I know Tuchel said aside from Thiago Silva, there's no really other injuries, but he did feel like mentioning that Tammy had a bit of an ankle thing the other day. And then injury or not, we know Tammy wasn't even in the squad against United. So I'm not at all saying Tammy's like totally far away from starting, but doesn't feel that likely for the Liverpool game. Yeah. And I would be kind of surprised to see Giroud start. That would be 3 in a row. He started against Liverpool, I believe. Yeah. So I'd be a little bit surprised to see Giroud get another goal, another start, not a goal, but another start. So, yeah, I mean, I guess you're just down to the options of Werner could be your most true striker. And then you could have Mount with a Pulisic or a Ziyech. But I don't know. I mean, we've heard Tuchel literally say that Kai could be best as like a 9.5 or, a striker in a 2-striker formation. And you and I did say, we both agreed together on my pod on Sunday that maybe if you're ever going to try this with Kai, it should be kind of being paired with Timo, his fellow German. And I think actually even stylistically, tactically, they can play well off each other. And then if Mount's kind of in behind them or just anywhere around them, he kind of simplifies some things they have to do. So I'm not going to really make a prediction and say we will see it, but I'll say this. I think we could see it, and I'm all for seeing it. And if you want me to finish my starting 11, yeah, you know what? I'll say Mount kind of as the free roamer, the 10, the false 9, whatever you want to call him, with Timo and Kai a little bit more forward.
Yeah. And I said this on your pod, but I feel like since we haven't really been scoring goals, why not bring a different player, a different type of player into the mix to see if he can kind of mix things up and change things around. And I think that since we're probably going to get more space against Liverpool, it could be a really great opportunity for Kai Havertz to do what he does best and create. And like we have seen that he can be aggressive and get those headers. The height might help us in this game as well. So the only thing that I would be nervous about is that he really has not played many minutes of football recently, like at all. So I don't know if we're necessarily going to see him thrown into a Liverpool game. But
sure.
Even
and a sneaky shout would be maybe Callum gets to go more forward. Like we have seen Timo, Callum, and Mason also forward together, at least here and there under Tuchel. So even though I didn't pencil him in at right wing back, like I said, that doesn't actually exclude him from playing. I mean, Elizabeth, I would still prefer what I said, Timo, Kai with Mace kind of tucked in behind. But I mean, hey, if Tuchel wanted to show us Callum kind of operating from the left and being more forward, which he also spoke about recently, I would be just as happy with that. Yeah.
Yeah. And Pulisic as well. Like I love this guy.
That's a weird one because he tore Liverpool apart in the restart. He was so amazing. But it's like, what guarantee do we have that we're going to have that Pulisic?
I know. It kills me. You know that it kills me. Like whenever he scores, I like almost have tears streaming from my eyes because I'm so happy for him. I'm like, yes, finally, whatever. And he hasn't been playing well, and I feel like he's been ghosting a lot of games, and it's just like really disappointing to see because we know what an incredible player he can be. I think it's probably like the injuries are just like getting to him at this point. I think it's probably preventative from his side, like mentally as well, just getting in his head like, oh, I don't want to pull my hamstring again, and probably directions or instructions that he's been receiving, like, hey, maybe you need to change your stuff, play a little bit so that you're not injured as much. I don't know what's going on with Pulisic, but if he could get back to his best form, then he would be a nailed-on starter, but he's just not there yet. So perhaps he's a great super sub, and hopefully he can terrorize Liverpool like he did last season. So
I swear he needs to bulk up, by the way. This is the first time I'm saying it really this confidently. I swear he needs to bulk up. When I say bulk up, I don't mean like hit the gym and just work on thighs and tries and shoulders and stuff. Like, look at Pulisic, by the way. He's a very small body, and I mean that in so many ways. Like, you look at Willian's not small like Pulisic is. He's tiny in height, but he's not small like Pulisic is. Like, Willian's quads and thighs, oof,
yeah, like
those
the
things are serious.
What?
Yeah, and honestly, like out there, even look at Mason Mount. Look at his body last year to this year. Like, you can tell he's added a lot of muscle onto his frame. Like, he now, especially being more of a midfielder, I know it's a different position, but like being more of a midfielder in the Premier League, look at the maturation even he's done in about a year with his body. Like, I look at Pulisic and I just see someone who, it's not that much of a mystery to me as to why he gets injured so much. He's quite small in just so many departments, height, but also like those legs are not even close to Eden Hazard legs. We know that, but like Willian had pretty special legs as well, and they're both insanely durable, or had been. Don't make me sad about Eden in Madrid, but obviously Willian and Eden Hazard, it's not a mystery as to why they were so durable. Their legs could take that bruising. Pulisic's, they're like half the size.
Yeah. So, yeah, I totally agree, and
Dr. Alex, by the way. I mean,
but he should be taking gym tips from you, Alex, if you're the person.
I skip leg day sometimes, so maybe that's not the best department to ask me about.
I saw your tweets of, I think it was Dan Childs was like, can you give me your gym routine? I was like, yes, I want this as well. Like,
he's a gym rat. He's a gym rat for sure, Dan Childs. Yeah.
So before we close up, I want to get to a question by Patrick Larson, who he's super supportive.
Patrick, really. Yeah, great guy.
Always joining. He asked, does the draw against Man United make this a must-win game?
Yes. I mean, listen, mathematically, a draw isn't going to kill you. It's not going to kill you. Like, you can still then get a good string of wins and you're right back in and around it. But I just think this is more than a math situation. Like, this is more than math. I think obviously losing is just a horrible, horrible turn of events. It is Tuchel's first loss. It obviously just is a huge hit in terms of, like I said, it's a 6-point game. So a loss is just really something that cannot happen. Like, I would really then change my tune on our top 4 chances. Right now, I still think we will finish top 4, but we lose tomorrow to Liverpool. And like, that's how big of a game it is where I might change my tune. So I think a draw, like, we're still in it. We're factually still in it. And Liverpool only got a point out of it as well. So we stay even with them. But I just think it's such a must-win game because you beat Liverpool. Oh, man. Like, Tuchel continues his run. You got a big win, against obviously a big team. I don't care their current form. That's a big win. You go 4 points clear of Liverpool. But also, once again, the human side of it, like the confidence that gives the group. And I'm not even saying the win would be 3-4 goals. I mean, that would give the team incredible confidence. But even just being able to, in the span of 10 days, it'll be like 10 days. In the span of 10 days, beating Atletico Madrid and Liverpool, that's huge. That is a huge confidence booster. And I even said it on the pod, Elizabeth. Yeah, the United game frustrated us as fans, but Tuchel did seem kind of genuine after the game in saying that there were a lot of positives that he liked. So clearly, like, he still was able to get through to the team, especially in the second half. So you take an Atletico Madrid win, a game against United where you didn't lose, and I guess there were still things to come away from positively. and then a win against Liverpool, you have still phenomenal momentum. But you lose, and it's just a huge, huge divot. And I do think that things become a lot bleaker. And even factually, there's going to be teams all the way to right before Arsenal, not Arsenal, but all the way to right before Arsenal, so like 9th or 10th, who after 1 or 2 wins will be ahead of you, and you can really slide down the table. So, yeah, I think the best way to phrase it is it's a must not lose, but secondary, it is kind of a must win. Yeah.
And do you think, given Liverpool's recent form, it makes it more of a must-win? Because there have been so many sides that have beat them: City, Leicester, Everton. Like, they've just been losing so many games. I think even Brighton beat them. So they've been in such bad form. Do you think that if Chelsea don't beat them, it's like could contribute to the confidence of the team? Like,
totally. I mean, yeah. Unfortunately, like I still feel like even when we're in good momentum, we keep having these instances where like we're the one team who gives someone a point or lets them get back in form. Like, did you see the stat about Southampton that they've lost? I don't want to butcher the stat, but like their last 27 possible points except for 1 or something, and that was us. So even when we're going well, we managed to find a team that's not doing well that we should absolutely beat. And once again, it doesn't matter the manager because this time it was under Tuchel. And we just don't get what we should from it. So we allow them back in. We don't have to worry about Southampton, but we allow that team, especially if they're close to us on the table, we allow them maybe form again, and we don't allow ourselves to get the full 3 points. So yeah, absolutely. The fact that you're probably not going to find a Jurgen Klopp Liverpool more wounded than this, you got to take advantage of it. You have to.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. So to end this, what is your score prediction against Liverpool?
Okay. Well, I got the Atletico Madrid one right. I didn't make one for Manchester United, so my bad, and maybe that's why it was a draw. So we'll try and get the juju back on. I'm actually going to surprise some people here. This is going to be a prediction that might not be that common. I'm going to say 3-1 Chelsea. Yep, 3-1 Chelsea.
What?
Yep. Well, here's my logic. Quick logic. We're not going to have another 0-0 game. We're probably not even going to have a 1-0 game. I refuse to predict a draw. I just refuse to predict a draw. And I do kind of feel like if we get an early goal, we're getting at least 3 goals in this game. Like, I do feel like this could be a catapult game, Elizabeth. I really do. Maybe this is just the optimistic side of me. But overall, I still love the energy and vibe around Tuchel's team. I do feel like someone is just waiting to get either a great goal or maybe even a crappy brace. Like, just someone is ready to at least start a little bit of a goal trend. So, yeah, I know it sounds a little ridiculous, but why does it have to sound so ridiculous? You know what I mean? Like, we're Chelsea. Like, it shouldn't sound that ridiculous to say 3-1. I admit it does, but I'm just going with it. 3-1 Chelsea. I'm not going to predict the goal scorers, but yeah, 3-1.
Interesting. No, I'm just nervous because we haven't been scoring that many goals. So I'm like, where are these goals going to come from?
Alonso hat trick. Forget everything I ever said in this whole entire stream. Alonso hat trick, and I'll be buying his kit.
I really need this to happen. I really need it to happen. I'm gonna go 2-1 for Chelsea. I'm hoping for a win, and I'm gonna try to be positive. I hope that I don't jinx the team. Guys, don't blame me. It's not my fault. It's not my fault. I don't have any players in my fantasy team, so that's the biggest jinx of all, and so it can't be blamed on me. But you guys, thank you so much for joining. I really hope that you enjoyed this video as much as I did. If you liked it, please drop it a like because it helps me out so much. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't done so already, because I'm going to have a lot of content like this and hopefully many awesome guests as well. Alex, thank you so much for taking the time to join me. I know you're so busy. I'm sure everybody knows where to find you, but in case they don't, where can the people find you?
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. Hold on. Did my audio? Nope, it's still good. All right, sorry. Yeah, no, I appreciate it. It was a lot of fun. You can find me on Twitter at @AlexGoldberg_. If you want to listen to a podcast that I do, it's called The Byline on Patreon. A lot of fun. Just had Harry Redknapp on the 3rd time earlier. I'm about to release it in an hour or 2. So yeah, just do that if you'd like.
Absolutely ridiculous. And definitely listen to the podcast. It's well worth it. And he has incredible interviews and guests on always. Maybe you'll find me on there too. So I don't know. Just promoting myself again. But guys, thank you so much for joining. Until next time, I'm out.